Thank you for tuning in to Love in Your Hands with Cynthia Clark, soulmate palmist, spiritual teacher, love coach, author, and speaker. We are sharing stories of love and connection and lessons learned along the way. This podcast is sponsored by loveinyourhands.com, the place to ignite soulmate love fast using an innovative system to help you end loneliness and toxic relationships and elevate your vibrational energy to soulmate love and deeply compatible partners. Get started for free at loveinyourhands.com. And now here's your host, Cynthia Clark.
Hi there, everyone. This is Cynthia Clark. I am your soulmate palmist and spiritual teacher. And I am really excited today because we are going to do another exciting palm reading with a really wonderful person. So I am really excited to introduce you to him. His name is Rob Actis. And he has such an interesting story. I can't wait to hear more about it. But Rob discovered the formula to getting what you want on your terms by enduring a near-death experience of his 14-year-old daughter and shortly after facing near-death himself. Okay, I love talking about stories like that, so I can't wait to get into that. Rob is the best-selling author of The Law of Action, speaker, voice actor for many national TV commercials for top brands, including CarMax, Black Box Wine, Bayer Aspirin, and Walmart. The narrator for Hal Elrod's The Miracle Morning audiobook, along with over 30 audiobooks on Audible, with combined sales of over 300,000 copies. And he lives by the law of action: decide, plan, and act. Yay, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Cynthia. Glad to be here. I'm excited. I took pictures of my hands and I saw the hands and I'm like, oh, I saw my hand and I went like this. And then I saw the picture on the back of the wall and I'm like, I should have done that. But actually, because I'm pretty thorough, I did both. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Yes. You are very thorough. So I appreciate that. So, so you and I met back in the New Media Summit in San Diego.
Absolutely.
Which was a really fun event. And I actually got the chance to read your hands at that event, which I didn't read for too many people at that time because we were just so busy.
I felt so special. Thank you.
But it was really fun to read for you because you were actually, well, in terms of like, who am I compatible with? I'm compatible with your archetype. So it was very fun to meet with you. So I naturally gravitate towards the air hands, which is what you are. So I wanted to start the show by just giving a little, just talk about your hands. So people who are watching on YouTube will be able to actually see the hands. I'm going to do a screen share here.
Hey, I got to say something. Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
I've had my hands read many times and they've been so far off that it's just unbelievable. And I just want to say, Cynthia, that I was so blown away because you didn't know me. What a great looking, oh, that's my hand.
Yes.
I'm kidding.
Look at that lovely hand.
My lovely hand. But I've had so many people read my hand. A lot of people claim they can do it. And, you know, just being around me, you can tell that I'm pretty high energy. And almost every single person was so far off of what I am and how I live my life. And you didn't know me from anything. And in a very short amount of time, it was really impressive. I just want you to know that I've really was quite impressed and humbled that, you know, I had the chance to cross your path and that, you know, a real person who knows what they're doing is reading my hands. So I just want to say thank you. That was really exciting.
Oh, thank you.
And I still have my piece of paper. Like, I've had this for a long time. This meant something to me. It really did because you're pretty right on there.
Yay. Well, that's the power of hand analysis. That's what I love about it. And I am saddened, unfortunately, by the fact that not enough people actually study it into the detail that it deserves. You know, this is just a little factoid about hands, is it was the palmistry book was actually the third book ever printed on the Gutenberg press. It
Wow.
used to be incredibly important. And unfortunately, it was derailed in the 1500s when the Pope declared it to be witchcraft. And you could be burned at the stake for practicing it. So it just took a horrible dive in credibility, validity, and all of that back in the 1500s. And it's still affecting us today. And so I feel like it needs to be put back where it belongs as something of great value and importance. And it does tell you everything about who you are. It's your mirror to understanding the self. And so the more we can understand.
I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool. I love it. And it's interesting because for some reason I've always looked at my hands and I'm like, I got an M there. Like, I just amazing. I've always been fascinated by my hands. So when you were like looking at it and saying this was this and this was this, it was great because my experience with other people reading my hands has just been, they've kind of like been looking at my hand and not really seeing my hand. They just kind of have been saying what they've been saying to say what they wanted to say.
Yeah. So that's unfortunate, but that's partly why I like to educate people about, what is really going on in the hands. And I've read over 7,000 pairs of hands, so I definitely have gone through my experience of work.
Well, you know what they say, 10,000 hours, you're a master. I would have to say at a 7,000, I know you've done probably more than 7,000 hours. So we'll just call you Master Cynthia Clark.
Yes, thank you.
You're a master at the hand.
Yeah, I'm sure I've easily put in 30,000 hours. Pretty
then you're
easily.
A grandmaster. You get a robe and like a sash or something.
Something like that.
Something like that.
So I want to hear a little bit about your near-death experiences. I want to hear about that because we can talk about that in the hands because that's actually something very important that a lot of people think about when they look at the fear that sometimes comes through people and not wanting to get their hands read is they think that I'm going to tell them how long they're going to live, which is not true because the lines in the hand do change. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, so you just want to make me cry, don't you? You just want to make me cry. So There you go. All right. So if you look here, I'll stand up. Does everybody can see that? So do you see that beautiful mermaid?
Here, let's do a stop share for a minute so it's a little bigger. Yeah, I do see that. Yes.
Okay. So it was June 8th, 2013, and my 14-year-old daughter, Aiden, was drawing that mermaid, and she had a headache. And what do you normally do when your kid has a headache? You say, hey, here's some Tylenol, and, go to sleep.
Right. Have them lay down or something.
So she was laying down and drawing that. Thankfully, she didn't stay all night because she would have died in the middle of her sleep because at that time we discovered that she was having a stroke. So she actually woke up and had to throw up. And after she threw up, she had the droop and she couldn't talk. Fast forward to us taking her to the emergency room where I had an interesting conversation with a nurse where I'm a very kind, low-key person. And they were telling me that my 14-year-old daughter was either pregnant, drunk, or on drugs. And I'm not a medical professional anyway, but some reason I knew that she had had a stroke. Now, when I think back in hindsight, it doesn't make any sense why I would know or even imagine that a 14-year-old could have a stroke, but I knew that she did. When she relapsed, when she went into a coma, that's when we had about 21 people in the emergency room, and they finally took notice that this is really bad. Fast forward, they life flighted her in a helicopter to Cardin Children's Hospital in Arizona. And thankfully, Dr. Moss, who's one of the foremost pediatric neurosurgeons in the world, happened to be on call, and he was there. The next day, he was leaving to go to an international conference in New York to talk about new procedures that he's found for pediatric neurosurgery. So we happen to have the most amazing neurosurgeon there. Dr. Moss looked at us and he said, this is really bad. We will hope for the best, and you need to prepare for the worst. Unfortunately, Aiden has about a 4% chance of survival. And if she does survive, her life will never be anything like you remember it to ever be. That was pretty scary.
Yeah,
And,
to say the least.
Fast forward, during surgery, she had a blood clot in her brain. They removed part of her left frontal lobe, about the size of a small little orange. She suffered 3 additional strokes, and her prognosis was really bad. She was in a coma, and for the first 72 hours, we prepared for her death 72 times. They kept telling us that she was going to die. Within the next hour, she was going to stroke out and die. And the pain that I felt physically and emotionally, and the fear that I felt, was like nothing I've ever experienced before. We went into massive action mode and did everything we could to maneuver and advocate for our daughter. We did a tremendous amount of positive affirmations to her, and by getting into the massive action, we created momentum. Miraculously, in a very short amount of time, just a couple of days, she came out. It was actually on my birthday, June 11th, and she opened her eyes. On Father's Day, a couple of days later, she said, "I love you, Daddy." Father's Day, birthday can never be topped. That's the best. When she got out of her coma, she couldn't walk and she couldn't talk and she couldn't use the right side of her body. She was committed to start school in August, and she did. We took massive action. We decided, we planned, and we took massive inspired action. And because of that, we got her the best care. We got her the best treatment. We did the best mindset, and she's recovered. She's living in Georgia right now with an amazing man and having an extraordinary life. She has a deficit of very, very little, maybe 1% to 2%. If that, you wouldn't even know it. But it was a very, very rough time. In the middle of that, in me trying to take care of everybody else, I wasn't taking care of myself. And so what I did was I gained a lot of weight in a very short amount of time. I got up to like 230 something pounds, 235. I'm 5'10". I got big. All I knew to do was eat. One of the things we discovered is that Aiden had Leiden factor 5, and we discovered that I gave it to it. It's a blood clotting disorder. And I decided when I looked at myself in the mirror that I was fat, I was disgusting, I wasn't healthy, I wasn't feeling good. And in order to take care of other people, I really need to take care of myself. So I'm not an athletic person. However, I'm very committed to when I do take action, and I take massive action. And I joined an MMA gym where I learned Muay Thai, and I could barely do that. After a very short amount of time, I was doing an hour of Muay Thai and then an hour of boxing, and then I had a personal trainer. I lost 35 pounds, went down to 200 pounds. And the one thing that I didn't know, and I mentioned this earlier, is that I'm not an athletic person. I've never really worked out in that capacity. So I didn't know what I didn't know. During that time, I had a Charlie horse in my right leg. And with that Charlie horse, I did everything I could to rub it out. I looked online. How do you get rid of a Charlie horse? You rub it, deep tissue massage, all that stuff. Well, my daughter, very brilliant, she said, "Dad, you have a blood clot." I go, "I don't got a blood clot." Now, I have Leiden factor 5, it's a blood clotting disorder, but I didn't look at the symptoms. I didn't look at what was going on, and I just ignored it. Fast forward to the point of I was at a social event, and someone rubbed my leg, and they said, "Your leg is hot." And I go, "Thank you." And it's a short sign. They're sitting next to me, and your leg is hot. And I'm like, "Well, thank you." I took that as a compliment. "No, your leg is really hot." I happen to be around a bunch of people that were very spiritual, and they all circled around me and they're like, no, there's something wrong. I could feel it. And I'm like, no. And then my legs started swelling up like
Mm.
massively. And I'm like,
Mm.
oh. And then I had the weirdest feeling that I could ever imagine. And that feeling was, oh, I feel like I'm going to die.
Whoa.
How do
Yikes.
you know what that is? How do you know what feeling like you're going to die is? And I'm like, okay. So and I'm thinking maybe I should go to the emergency room.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
So,
should.
and I just have a question. How much time did you have this Charlie horse? How long was this period?
4 months.
Oh my gosh.
So that's
Yikes.
the amazing part. So
Wow.
I got to the ER, was in a lot of pain. They gave me morphine. Um, I had my ultrasound. The ultrasound tech looked absolutely terrified. I asked what was going on. She said, "Oh no, everything's fine. Everything's great. The doctor will explain it to you."
Mm.
I'm kind of empathic and intuitive, and I'm like, something's really wrong here. This is not good. Doctor looked at me and he said, "Rob, this is really bad. This is really serious." And I'm like, "Okay, so fix it." He goes, "You have a blood clot." I'm like, "Oh, okay, so fix it." Well, your blood clot is from the top of your thigh, where your leg attaches to your hip, all the way down to your ankle. It's a
Mm.
solid sludge. It's a solid mass.
Mm.
I'm like, okay, so we're going to go ahead and get you on blood thinners and send you home. And I'm like, great. All right, good. I'm on morphine now. So I'm feeling okay. And he goes, yes. And he goes, you're going to need to take it easy. I'm like, all right, I could take it easy. He said, you're going to need to take it easy because if one of those moving particles in your mass was to dislodge and travel through the vein, which very possibly could happen at any moment, it will go to your heart or your lungs, and you'll have. And I interrupted him and I said, "Oh," so I just go to the emergency room, and they just fix me up. He goes, "No, you go to the emergency room, and ultimately they'll probably prepare you for your death. You'll either have a massive stroke or you're just going to die."
Mm.
Well, that sucks. So what do I need to do? So now this is someone who's never been really active in physical stuff. And I was doing all this stuff and I was just starting to get in,
Oh.
actually go in and learn how to do MMA fighting. And I'm
Mm.
like, this is cool. And he goes, you just need to go home and not do anything for a couple months.
Mm.
Oh, that sounds really fun. So for a couple months, I didn't do anything. And ultimately, I'm still alive.
Yes.
Shockingly, during that time, I came up with the idea of the law of action, and I looked at my life of where I took action and where I didn't, and I really reevaluated my life. Now, as a successful voice actor, I do many national commercials, and that has been great financially. However, it didn't feed my soul in the way that being an audiobook narrator for Hal Elrod's books, because I know I've been a catalyst for magnificent change for people, that. And I always had wanted to be a speaker, but I never had a great story. Well, now I got a really good story. So I decided to take all this information and put it in a book. And that's my path now. My path is to really instill in people that at any moment your life can change and that you need to live every day like you want to be alive. Like, stop being on the runway, take off and do what you want to do. And it's not just business, it's personal, it's health, it's relationships, it's everything. And
Mm.
the COVID, this pandemic, has really been that, boom, you've been waiting for all
Wake
this
up.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, now's a chance to reinvent. So that's really what happened with my daughter. And then that's what happened with me. And so that's where
Mm.
my commitment is, to really serve and add value to people's lives, because that's what feeds me. That's where I get my juice, is by adding value and contributing. You can learn from my mistakes, and trust me, I've made a lot of them, and they're in the book. So there you go.
That's awesome. Wow, what a great story. Okay, so let's go back to your hands and see how this all plays out in your hands.
Oh man.
Shall we?
Shall we?
That will be so interesting. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out about your hands is that you have long fingers and a square palm. Okay, this is known as an air hand. So that also tells me why you probably weren't super athletic, because you spent more of your time in the realm of thinking and, just like, okay, I'm going to follow what I'm curious about. And it also explains why you would be so good with your voice, because air also represents the breath and speaking and communicating.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
do that. It's so funny. I've never looked at my fingers and said they're long. I've always thought that I have the shortest freaking stubby fingers in the world. So that's
well,
kind of cool. Well,
it's
there you go. I have long fingers. I'm excited. Thank
yes,
you.
it's relative to the palm. So how we do the measurement is we measure the length of the middle finger versus the length of the palm, and that's how you determine if you have long or short fingers. So
it's an optical illusion.
it can be, yeah, which is why I always measure it. I
Okay.
actually use my calipers, and you probably remember that when we were together in San Diego.
Yeah, when you brought out your tools, I'm like, oh man, there's a method. This is the master here. That was so cool. You're like, let me bring out my tools. I'm like, that's cool.
Yes, I always have my magnifying glass and my calipers
Yeah,
and my
that was cool.
flashlight.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's how you determine the air hand. And then the second thing we look at is the strong finger. In your case, your ring finger, also known as Apollo, is your strong finger. And this is where your creativity comes in, and using the creativity with your voice. So you have that ability actually to, and that's part of your relationship genius, is that you can find the pathway that works. Okay, so when we think of the archetype, your archetype is Temperance. Temperance knows the middle road to go to that's going to work. And that comes through your creative Apollo finger and your air combination. So in fact, your law of love is through your creativity. So you definitely need to be in touch with your Apollo energy
Oh,
and
I am.
asking yourself, yeah, I know you are. I have no doubt about this. But yeah, so that's this finger right here, the ring finger.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so in terms of like, who are you attracted to? Who is your best match? Well, definitely your best match is a fire hand, which is going to be shorter fingers and more of a rectangular palm. And your best match is the magician archetype, which is going to be a long little finger. Okay, so the little finger is going to come up when you put the fingers together, it'll come up above this upper phalange of Apollo. Okay, so that's how you identify a magician hand. And a magician is all about those ideas. They're very excited and they have all these resources, and they're like, well, what do I do with these resources? And you, as Temperance, can show them, well, you should do this, follow this, because you're the one who points the way to the right road that's going to work. So, but what a magician does for you is that they fire you up. They can get you excited about things, and they can actually empower your creativity. So there's a beautiful synergy that goes with those
Kind of like a
two.
muse. Kind of like a
Yes,
muse.
yes, definitely. And fire types do tend to be pretty athletic. And so they can motivate you to stay active and, be healthy in your body as well. They tend to be the most athletic types in all of the hand shapes. So anybody with a fire hand will be like that, usually, if they're in balance. So you would also do well with people who are, any of the strong fingers. So as long as they're a fire hand with short fingers and a rectangular palm, they could have a strong finger be their Jupiter, their Saturn, or their Apollo. But your very best match is the Mercury, because we're combining your fire finger with the air finger. That's the synergy. Okay, we want to find the complementary energies. So in terms of like how long you're going to live and things like that, that's all just like not accurate in the hands because the lines change. So your archetype forms by the time you're about 6 years old, but your lines, they ebb and flow like rivers of energy. Okay, so this is where our free will comes into play, and it can show you exactly how you are interacting with your environment, with your world. Okay, so the lifeline is actually very important, and it is the major line on the hands. Here, we're going to blow this hand up. And just looking at your line, look at this. Okay, we have a little bit of a blip right here, right?
Yeah, I
That's
see
a,
that.
yeah, blip in your lifeline represents a shift in your vitality. Okay, so this could represent where you had that near-death experience. But you can see it's clearly overlapping, and I think it's even connected if we look at it.
Well, what's interesting, I should have a bunch of those because
Yeah.
I've had a few near-death experiences.
Yeah, well, we'll
From
look at your other
yeah.
hand too in just a minute, but you can clearly see the quality of your line. Okay, now early in your line, you do have what we call an island. It's like a little bubble. Bubbles are troubles in the hands. So anytime we have bubbles, they represent a stress in the line that we're looking at. So in this case, the lifeline represents your vitality and your stability. Okay, so it's common actually to see a little bit of stress in our earlier part of the line because we're also developing our vitality at that time. So it kind of makes sense to see it quite often like that. But yeah, anytime you see a break in the lifeline, that represents a shift or a stress in your vitality or stability. But we look at how is it breaking? It's breaking outward, which to me represents positive change from the event. Okay, so whatever happens in your life, it's like, okay, well, you're going to come through it and it's going to be a positive shift. And look how strong the line is after that. It's like, wow, it's just like clear as can be, right?
Okay, so kind of crazy. So one of the reasons that I'm alive is I have some type of birth defect in my vein. And
Hmm.
so if a vein goes straight down, like if you look at
Mm-hmm.
the line on there, I
Yeah.
have the straight down, and then I have a little teeny feeder vein that's extra that very few people have, that
Hmm.
it actually was able to process some blood. So I look at that and I'm like, oh, it's kind of like my vein. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That is interesting. So this is how you can read the lifeline, and it does change too. So it's possible that even if you've had more than one near-death experience, that the line could actually repair itself completely.
Wow.
So yeah, it's so fascinating. By the way, this little fork down here at the bottom
Yeah, yeah.
of the lifeline, a lot of people ask me about this. This is what we call the traveler's fork, and it represents somebody who can really appreciate and value traveling and needs to kind of get out of their inner circle. Sometimes they need to spread their wings. So some travel is good for you if you choose to do that. So, and we're looking right now at your left hand. Let's move over to your right hand. Now, which hand is your active hand?
I'm ambidextrous.
Oh, okay. I think
So
I
I do different
remember.
things. So I eat
Yeah.
left-handed, I write right-handed, I shoot
Mm-hmm.
left-handed, I do other stuff. It's
Mm-hmm.
either and or.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. So if we look at your lifeline on your active hand, again, we see a very strong line. It's a little stressed out at the beginning. Again, when we look at this kind of braiding and chaining, that shows some stress. Also in your headline, that's showing up a little bit. That's very common, by the way. So I don't consider it like an alarming kind of a thing. But then we want to just see the overall quality of the lifeline will show your vitality. And also when we look at
I'm just laughing. I should have washed my hands before I took that picture. I was shaved. I was dry shaving my head. I went like this. That's my hair. Oh my God. That was so funny.
it's
Next time you
okay.
gotta tell people, wash your hands. It's zoomed in. I didn't even see it. Oh my God, it's so funny.
Well, we're
Okay.
kind of blowing it up pretty big too.
Yeah, I think those are microscopic hairs. That's how much hair I have on my head. That's it.
Okay, so okay, but I want to also point out people's vitality can also be seen through what we call the Venus mount, which is the big mount next to your thumb. So if we pull this back out, this area here that is just next to your thumb and inside your lifeline, we call that Venus.
Yeah.
This is your area of giving, by the way. Of course, Venus represents the goddess of love. So it's your giving energy. But it's also that vitality and how much vitality is available. Okay. So by the way, all the mounts can be read this way. So if you have puffiness in your mounts, it shows that there is available energy. If you squeeze that mount, and if it squeezes and it's not elastic, like if it sort of collapses, that can actually show that you're tired, that you're depleted. Okay, so
mine bounces right back.
yeah, so I just looking at your hand, I can tell that you have a lot of energy and you have a lot of vitality. You know, there's really good things to be said about the work that you've done, and it shows. See, that's the cool thing, is it shows.
That's awesome.
The progress. Okay, and the other cool thing that I wanted to point out, coming back to this Venus, as long as we're in here, is look at all these beautiful lines coming up from the base of the hand. Okay, they're these little kind of vertical lines that come up out of Venus. And those are actually, they represent love energy that you can contribute to the world.
Nice.
Okay, because Venus, again, is all about giving. So people who have a lot of these lines, they have a lot to offer. And the energy that's there is showing the flow. So it looks to me like you have a lot of things that you have to offer, a lot of like a big contribution that you want to share with the world. And the fact that they're showing up here is telling me that it's number one, it's readily available. And number two, it looks like you're actually bringing it outward. So, and by the way, I also want to point out that you do seem to show a pretty severe lack of stress in your hands, which is really nice. So whatever you've been doing, it's really good.
You know, I'm going to share that with people. I think it's really important. So I am under a tremendous amount of stress. I have a 21-year-old daughter who lives across the country. I have 2 brick and mortar businesses that were shut down. I have a mom who's 90 years old and a dad who's 89 years old. I have a tremendous amount of stress. And I'm really thrilled that you saw that, because I do a few things that I want to share with the people that are watching this. It's so important.
I would love to hear.
The one thing that I do is I live in the very present moment, like now. So if you have depression, you're living in your past. If you have anxiety, you're living in your future. So there's nothing that I can change at all about what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month. This is a very stressful time. This worldwide pandemic, I mean, they're talking about shutting everything down again because people are not doing what they're asking. And so the numbers are going up and all that stuff. And it's a very stressful time. There are people that are really struggling. I'm an extrovert. I have not been around a bunch of people. That's my travel. My travel is I go find groups of people. I love people. I'm a hugger. I usually hug 30, 40 people a month.
Yeah,
I hug
me too.
1 or 2
I
people, or not a month, but a day. I now hug 1 to 2 people a day. It's having an impact on me. So the way that I have so little stress is that 1, I stay in the very present moment. 2, I give gratitude every single day before I go to bed. And every day, like my gratitude before I go to bed is, I am so grateful to live another day. Like, I'm so grateful. That's the first thing I say. In the morning when I wake up, and you wake up and your eyes are closed and you're awake, before I even open my eyes, I'm like, I am so grateful I get another day. I'm so grateful to be alive. And then I also meditate. And I also don't have a lot of friction in my life. I'm not tolerant of friction. I like things to flow. So I'm not someone who gets caught up in people's drama. I'm not into gossip. And I just kind of, you know, my friend Travis says, I just kind of stay in my bliss bubble and just live in my world, because I cannot control that. Everything around me is going to happen no matter what. So I just stay very present am very calm and very in flow. And, you know, people say, oh my God, you have great, like, I get stressed just like everybody else. And the way that I do that is those things. So if you have a lot of stress and you want to have whatever you've just said on my hand to show that I don't have a lot of stress because I should be just freaking going crazy, is those are what I do.
And it works. It obviously works. It shows.
It's living every day like you want to be alive.
Yeah,
Like,
that's great.
like my food choices, I don't drink soda. I drink water. I drink healthy food, and not some like this athlete. It's because I want to do everything within my power to take personal responsibility to be alive, because I've fought really hard to be alive, and I want to be alive because I feel there's more I can bring to the world. My time is not up yet.
Yes.
And so many people have so many gifts and they're not sharing those gifts.
Yes. Oh, I just love all of this conversation because this brings us to your secondary archetype. I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about it, but I might as well talk about it. So we have not only our primary archetype, which is in our hand shape and our strong finger, but also we have it in our hand shape and our secondary lines. So we have elements that are also in the lines. Okay, so in your case, your air, which is your primary hand shape, but your lines, if we look at them, they're very delicate lines. Okay, so these are actually watery. Okay, so air and water is the archetype of the star. Okay, so the star is somebody who sees the potential in others. Okay, it's somebody who can develop the talents and skills and show other people their talents and skills. And it's also about you utilizing your own talents and skills. So, you know, and as a temperance, you definitely are a very reasonable type person because you take the path of moderation and reasonableness, okay? Because you've got that thoughtful air combined with that beautiful Apollo sun energy. So, you know,
I don't know if I agree with me being reasonable. I'm pretty.
Yes. No, you
Really?
are. Yes,
You think so?
absolutely. Yes.
Okay. All right.
You're reasonable.
All right. You say so.
When you're in balance. Okay.
Well, you know, so that's what I talk about. So,
yeah.
you know, chapter 5 in the book says, let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. And it's all about just really letting things flow. And and that's what I discovered when I was laying in my bed, is that when you let things just flow and you're on your right path, it just all comes together.
Yes.
Like it just all comes together. It's such a beautiful thing. And if you're having this uphill battle and it's just fighting, you're not happy, it's time to shift, pause, pivot, because you're at a fork in the road. It's time to, you know, life is so precious, and this is our shot. You should do what fulfills you and what you're in flow with. Don't fight, because the universe doesn't like it when you fight, and they will make it more obvious to you and continually if you're not in flow. So I guess that's where my reasonable is, because it's very flowy.
So. Well, I meditated actually on that this morning. It's interesting that you're bringing this up, but I got the image of a river and rocks in the river. And sometimes we come and if we picture ourselves as like being in a raft on the river, it's like we come up to the rocks and we're in resistance, right? We stop. And it's like, well, if we just move the rock out of the way, we can continue our flow, right? So what we need to do is we need to let go of our resistance, and then we can just we naturally will flow and evolve. So, and this will show up in your hands, I guarantee it, because the resistance lines will start to disappear.
And here's what I think. So if you look at, I'm a go-getter, I'm doing stuff. And so I look at the time frame of where I was at when my daughter had her brain surgery and her strokes. I look at where my life was before that. And I had to really stop what I was doing. I had to continue because I had to provide for a family who had massive medical bills. And then what I also did was I know where my life was when I had my blood clot. It's the pause. The universe is given a pause. So if you look in the grand scale of this pandemic of the world, it's the great pause. The universe is like sending messages to us, and we really need to listen.
Yes.
We really, there are some people that have transformed their lives that it doesn't even look anywhere near the same. So people I've been working and coaching with, they have like been so unhappy, and we've shifted, and then we pivoted, and now they have this whole new beautiful life because they haven't been sitting home watching Netflix or whatever else that they're watching.
Yes.
They've been creating their new possibility for their life, and they are so much happier. They've let go of stuff. They've realized what's important in life and what's not. So if you ignore what you're supposed to be doing, the universe will like tap you on the shoulder, then it'll push you, and then it will eventually just hit you on the side of the head with a 2x4. And I think that's what happened in regards to this pandemic is all this unrest and all the crazy that's going on. The universe is like, stop. What's important? Now, the one thing that I think is important is human connection. And so that's the big joke that the universe is playing on us right now, because that's the one thing that I believe is one of the most important things is the human connection. And I'm talking not just conversation stuff, but the physical connection, a handshake, a handhold, a hug, a kiss. That to me is what life is all about. And we've been limited in that. So that's the big, I don't understand what the universe is doing, but no, this is an opportunity for us to be who we've always wanted to be. This is the chance for a pause. This is unheard of. This has never happened in the history. As long as they've been writing things, it's never happened. So this is our opportunity to take that moment and shift and pause and be in flow and do what we're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
Don't waste this time.
No, it's not.
Don't waste this time.
Yes, this is definitely an opportunity to grow. So we must focus on love. We must focus on the light. We must focus on being authentic in who we are. And we all need to remember that we are the love. We are the light. We have the power in this moment right now to choose love. And so let's do it. Let's all do it together. Let's all do it individually. You know, we have
raise our vibration.
Yeah, raise our vibration and absolutely connect to your authentic self, who you were born and destined to be.
Absolutely, 100%.
So, I love ending with that. That's awesome. You're such an inspiration. So, so tell us a little bit about how do you work with people, or what? How do people reach you?
You can reach me. It's really easy. It's robactis.com. And you can reach out to me there. I do work with people individually. I also have a virtual coaching program that I'm releasing very, very soon, which is going to be really cool. It is very affordable, and it's a way to interact with me. And I have loaded it with great stuff. It's all about being your best self. It's based through the law of action, and the results have been pretty phenomenal. I've been working through this pandemic, and the results that I've gotten with a few people have been really tremendous. And I'm just really excited about that. My Living the Law of Action podcast is going to be launching very soon. My audiobook, Living the Law of Action, is now on Audible. So now I'm up to 34 audiobooks. If you like my voice, I have 34 books out there. The Miracle Morning, I'm the narrator for all the Miracle Morning books. And I'm just thrilled to be that, because not everybody has time to read a book. They can listen to an audiobook. So all those hundreds of thousands of people that never would have read the book have heard me bringing Hal Elrod's words to life. And I'm very humbled and thrilled to be that. We also have a funny podcast. It's coming out. It's called Failed Dinner Conversations with Sean Douglas. You may remember Sean.
Yes.
Super great guy. It's
Yes.
Failed Dinner Conversations. It's mature audiences. And we talk about all of those things that happen at a dinner conversation, and also awkward conversations after you've left the dinner party, those conversations. And
that sounds great.
We even do some practical jokes. It is not to add any value to your life, except it's a great escape. And it's a way to see me and Sean in a different light. People are like, whoa, you're, yeah. So it's not for general audiences, but it's funny. And we're excited. We're going to have some other comedians on there, and that's going to be relaunching very soon. So
Oh, that sounds amazing.
always doing something cool, right?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you so much. This has been so much fun. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And remember that life has more meaning when it's shared. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you for listening to Love in Your Hands. Please rate, review, and subscribe to show your support. Have a question for Cynthia? Just post a comment. This podcast is sponsored by loveinyourhands.com, the place to find soulmate love fast. Start your free Soul Connection membership today, upload your hand photo, discover your relationship archetype, and start finding soulmate matches. Just go to loveinyourhands.com to get started.